All right, good morning, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is July 22nd, BOCC meeting. I want to welcome everyone that's here and also acknowledge Clerk Miller and Sheriff Del Toro here with us this morning and his team. If you could stand for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please pray with me if you'd like to. Almighty God, as we gather today, we thank you for the opportunity to serve the people of St. Lucie County. We ask for your steady hand to guide our hearts and our minds. Reach those in our community who are burdened with hardship and offer them hope, strength, and the courage to move forward. We ask your blessings upon this meeting. Grant our board the wisdom to make decisions that are just, thoughtful, and in the best interest of all the residents. May their actions reflect the values of compassion, accountability, and unity as we strive to improve the quality of life in St. Lucie County. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, if I can remind everyone to put their cell phones on silent for me, and we're going to go ahead and take a brief recess and go into our special district meeting, starting with mosquito control.
At this time, I'd like to call the Mosquito Control District meeting to order at 9:01. First thing on the agenda is public comments. Anyone wishing to speak, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Go on to approval of the minutes. I need a motion for approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Anyone looking to pull anything on the consent? If not, I'd like to get a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. There's nothing on the regular agenda, so at this time, we'd like to get a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, and then bring it over to erosion district.
At this time, we'll come to order as the erosion district. At this time, we'll have general public comment. If you'd like to have a public comment, please come forward. Seeing no movement, we'll close public comment. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve the entire consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That brings us to the end of the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We adjourn.
All right. Thank you. Coming back to the regular meeting, moving into the approval of the agenda with the additions, deletions, and revisions. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, this morning we have a presentation by our Parks and Rec team. Good morning, Joy.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. For the record, Joy Harthorn, Parks and Recreation Director. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for allowing me to speak today. Since July is Parks and Recreation Month, what better way to celebrate this month than to showcase our department in action? With me today, I have my managers over the divisions. I have Donald Lutton, our Parks Manager. I have Jennifer Gill, no relation to Eric Gill. She told me to say it. Our Recreation Manager. I also have, I don't see him, but Mark Camarini is our Golf Course Manager. And Daniel Fines, our Project and Construction Manager. That's the team. So the mission of the Parks and Recreation Department is to enhance the quality of life in St. Lucie County by providing memorable, positive experiences for our citizens and visitors at our facilities, parks, and event venues. And we do that with our staff. Our department consists of 5 divisions: the Administration Division, the Parks Division, the Recreation Division, Fairgrounds Golf Course Division, and our newest division, our Project and Construction Division. This structure allows us to remain responsive to the community and ensure accountability while coordinating efforts across the department. Our Parks Division is responsible for the maintenance of all St. Lucie County parks and venues, including all of the parks in the Recreation Division. They also oversee 4 boat ramps, 3 canoe and kayak launches, 14 public beaches, and 19 community parks. And I was going to add a partridge and a pear tree. This division has skilled staff that reside in the Parks Trades crew, the Athletic Grounds Maintenance crew, and the Parks Grounds Maintenance crew. A few highlights of the Parks Division I would like to point out is they recently just renovated the restrooms at River Park Marina Park by painting the interior and the exterior of the restrooms and upgrading the amenities and some of the fixtures within the bathrooms. Another project the Parks Division just completed was they improved the access points at Weldon B. Lewis and Lincoln Park Regional Park with gates, bollards, and fencing. The Recreation Division, they're responsible for the operations, the programming, the revenue collection at all of our parks locations. The Recreation Division is also responsible for scheduling the athletic fields and both South County and Lawnwood Stadium. Other public recreation amenities and programs include our open recreation, which is at the Finn Center, tennis and pickleball, basketball, disc golf, our rec and roll mobile unit, our athletic programs, our aquatic programs, and our community special events. A few highlights I would like to point out for this division is the Aquafit participation, which is a class that we started back in August for fitness in the pools, has increased its participation by 30 participants. And not only do they come out and they join the Aquafit program, they also stay afterwards and they connect and they also feed one another, and they actually have social hour, which is a part of Parks and Recreation goal, is to connect the community. The other highlight I would like to point out is our archery class. It started in June, and as soon as we put it up for slots to book, it was already booked. That class was booked, and that's a part of our Rec and Roll summer program. Fairwinds Golf Course is the award-winning 18-hole championship Jim Fazio designed golf course built on the county's former landfill. Fairwinds operates as an enterprise fund and strives to operate independently as a business with no impact on the general fund. The golf course reaches the community with a wide range of special programs, which include the First Tee program, the Wounded Warriors program, junior golf, and some weekly women's and men's leagues, and various golf clinics. A few highlights of the Fairwinds Golf Course Division is this summer they hosted junior golf camp, and they have over 78 junior golfers. They also participate in the PGA Hope program, and they've served over 275 veterans to this day. And our Project and Construction Division. They are responsible for the managing and planning, design, construction for our capital improvement projects related to parks and recreation facilities. These projects can range from building a new park, a recreation center, renovating an existing facility, and this often involves a significant financial investment. And a few highlights of this division is the Blind Creek Beach expansion, North Causeway Island Park improvement, and White City stabilization project. Now a little glance into our department in action. So the first picture you'll see to my left, your right, is our Parks Division updating the observation deck at Waveland Park. On the top, you have our junior golf program, which is led by our assistant professional, Annery. Down on the bottom, that so popular aquatic fitness class being led by our aquatics coordinator, Brian. And to my right, the little chefs up top, they are a part of the Lincoln Park Community Center summer camp program, which offers theme weeks every week, and this week they learned how to cook, and they all were chefs. And then down at the bottom, that's our archery class, a little photo of our archers, our marksmen participating in the archery class. Again, to my left, I have the parks crew beautifying River Park Marina. In the middle, you'll see Fairwinds Golf Course, the clubhouse, which was constructed in 1997, and they recently repainted it and did some updates to the landscape to make it a little more beautiful and inviting. Down at the bottom, we have our award-winning Spring Fling. Last year's Spring Fling won this year's 2025 NACO Award, which is the National Association of Counties, for its Spring Fling in the children and youth category. And then the picture right next to it is a young man who utilizes the pool. And I thought this picture was fitting because it really speaks about what Parks and Recreation is all about. This young man was unable to get in the pool on his own will, so he uses our ADA motorized lift to get in and out of the pool. And one day his mom spoke to the aquatics team, and she said, "This is the freest he feels is when he's in this water." And it just touched our heart so much that the team made him an honorary lifeguard. So I thought that was very special. And then the picture up top to the right, my right, is a little peek at the progress of the North Causeway boat ramp. And down below, you'll see the baseball fields at Lakewood Park. Any questions?
Questions, comments from the board?
No?
I just want to say, I'm glad you pointed out our NACO award this year, but very humble. You forgot that last year we were also awarded a NACO award for our Rec and Roll program.
You're absolutely right.
So I'm going to dare you to go 3 for 3 this year.
Oh, did you hear that? 3 for 3.
Did you hear that, team? We want 3 for 3. So, Joy, I appreciate your energy, your enthusiasm, the same that we get from your entire team. You guys do great stuff. You're always coming in with fresh ideas, so really appreciate it.
We thank you for your support, and we look forward to continually sharing what the department's doing and more in our vision as we continue to make St. Lucie County the best place to be. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Townsend.
if I can ask at this time, Mr. Fry is here somewhere. I saw him. There's been conversations for a couple of months now, and I think that you're all going to be pleased with what was discovered. You've all received the handout. In order for it to be explained and him get it, since he's the one that is the CPA in the room, I'd like for him to explain to you how there's a path forward to approve our budget, which is later on the agenda, and we will be able to lower the millage rate. So if I could ask at this time to have Mr. Fry come to the podium and give a brief presentation.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Joy.
Joy.
Mr. Fry?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. A little nervous here. I haven't done this for quite a while, so I apologize if I kind of fumble as I go through. But I had met with Commissioner Townsend last week to discuss a way that you might be able to reduce the millage rate without any change in the budget except for the cash forward portion. So there's a paper in front of you. I would like to go through this paper and explain it to you and how you can successfully reduce the general fund millage rate by 1/10 of a mil. So starting, in the 2025-2026 proposed budget, the staff is projecting that there will be a fund balance at the end of this fiscal year of $90.4 million. Now, for the current year that you're in, the 2024-2025 year, the estimated beginning balance that was in the budget document at 9/30/24 was $92.1 million. The actual amount, based on the audited financial statements, was $112.9 million, nearly over $20 million in excess of what was projected. Now, before I move on here, I've worked in the budget area and the finance area for years. And when you're preparing an estimate of revenues and expenditures in February and March, 6 months before the end of the year, you're trying to do the best you can. Now, in this county, obviously, we have hurricanes. Last year, we had the tornadoes. That was a tremendous impact to the community, a devastating impact. And so certainly, you want to provide a cushion if that occurs. So I support, the estimate that was provided for OMB, because you just don't know. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't want to wind up going into the next fiscal year being short of funds compared to what you were hoping to have available. So I just want to put that out there that, they do what I feel is a very good job, as does Mr. Landry. So what I wanted to look at is in terms of how can you reduce the millage rate going forward. So the proposed general fund budget at the time that I looked at the documents was $184.4 million. The value of 1 mil is $42.8 million. And so a 1/10 of a mil reduction would not really require $4.2 million, because for all of the projections on ad valorem taxes, there's a less 5% that you have to take into consideration. In addition to that, the tax collector charges a 1% commission. So for the $4.2 million, the net value of that revenue in the general fund would actually be about the $4,245,000 rather than $4,288,000. My assumption is you are not going to spend 100% of a $184 million budget. And generally, you haven't done that historically. I think this coming year will be no different. So based on that, I'm assuming there'll be at least 1% that you will not spend. That's $1.8 million. In addition to that, I feel like you can safely increase the estimated fund balance at the end of the year by $2.4 million. The total of those two numbers makes up the reduction of the millage rate. And my recommendation is you can move forward with this. This will not have an impact on everything that's planned next year on the appropriation side. The impact will be on the estimated fund balances at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. And I am done. And I appreciate the opportunity to present this information to you.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here this morning.
So, Madam Chair, I think that this shows that we could comfortably do a 0.1/10 of a mil and lower the millage rate. If you have questions, that's why I wanted him to be here too, because of the conversations that y'all might want to have or something, if you have any questions.
Questions or comments from the board at this time?
Madam Chair. Ms. Fry, thank you very much. Brings a little bit of new light to the budget conversation, and appreciate your work and homework and dedication to it. I would like to hear from staff on their thoughts.
So, Madam Chair, Commissioners, We appreciate Mr. Fry, bringing this today. We weren't aware that he was bringing this today, and we know he's a pro, and we don't doubt his analysis and numbers, but this wasn't something that was discussed or prepared for on the agenda, so we would just like the board's indulgence on the opportunity to go back and relook at some things, and can meet with Mr. Fry and the OMB team at a later date, and can circle back to you. Because as you're aware, today's later item for the millage rates is just tentative, and you can always lower later after we can validate stuff. You don't have to do that today. You can always do that all the way up until September. But if you do lower it today and we find some sort of challenge or need not to do that, you're stuck and you can't go back. So then we're just over the barrel at that point in time. So what we would like to do is ask the board that we consider with what the agenda items later on today are there for, and we can circle back, and you always reserve that right to lower it at a later date.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Landry. Any other questions?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Gillespie.
So, I hear this all the time that, you can set it lower now, but then you can't go back as if that's a bad thing. I hear that and it's music to my ears. I'm comfortable with lowering the millage rate 0.1 and we just figure it out. There's some other boards that I sit on that are considering lowering their millage rate, and I think it's a team effort to, as every agency in the county should look to do this. And thank you, Commissioner Townsend, for bringing this. I hope staff has time to fully analyze this. Yeah.
All right. And I think Jen is up here to answer Commissioner Leap's questions.
Did you want to take some time and get back with us?
I think that would be best. I mean, where we left the last special meeting was the budget was out of balance by $3 million to the bad. So we're already working to find ways to address that. There are a lot of factors that go into fund balance forward. Fund balance forward is not the same thing as reserves. There can be some overlap there, but there are obligations for some of our fund balance forward. There's been several major purchases, and actually just at the last informal meeting, there was also discussion of possibly buying some property that would utilize some of our reserves and would hit our fund balance. So there's a lot of factors in play that we would want to analyze before we would make a decision like that.
Thank you. Yeah, just, for my interpretation of everything that's going on, hopefully I'm saying this right, I do want to protect our bond rating, so I'd like to lower the millage rate too, so if at all possible, have your cake and eat it too, so to speak. So yes, please get back with us and let us know what your outcome is. And again, thank you, Mr. Fry.
Thank you for the opportunity to present it.
Thank you. All right. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to general public comment. Anyone wishing to address the board on any consent items or anything that is a regular agenda item, now would be your time. Good morning. Yes, sir. Come up to the podium if you would be so kind as to give us your first and last name and your address. This way the recording secretary can get it down.
Hello. Commissioners, county administrators, staff, city attorney, or county attorney, rather. I have 30 years experience in utilities. My name is Christopher Cassidy. My property is covered under Florida Statute 119.0714D, and I therefore will not provide my address. But I'm here to not just tell you how great you're doing, but kind of tell you that you're failing in a lot of things, especially in your stormwater maintenance. I've been trying to address this problem in my area for over a year now. I met with Mr. Clasby not too long ago in June. You can't collect fees and not do what you're supposed to do. I mean, the stormwater in my area, there's banana trees growing in the ditches. There's a contractor that was supposed to be hired to take care of all these things, and it's not happening. As of last year, you had one employee and one Vector truck in the entire county to take care of all the stormwater culverts. That's unacceptable. Everyone pays their fees every year. It's $135, I believe, annually If you do that by the number of parcels, you got millions of dollars. I don't know where the money's going, but it needs to be applied to your current infrastructure. The county's looking to expand. You can't take care of what you got right now. Why are you looking to move forward? I'm not advocating for lowering taxes. I'm fine with paying my taxes and my fees, but I expect to have what I pay for fulfilled. My property floods. You guys are using my property as a stormwater retention pond. It's illegal in the state of Florida to shed stormwater runoff on another person's property. Every time there's a rain event, it takes me days to clean all the garbage and debris, organic and trash, off my property at my expense. So I wrote emails. I met with Mr. Clasby. I know it's been a short time. I'm letting you work on it, but I've been dealing with this since last year. I get a lot of promises, and it seems like a lot of hot air. And you know what? That's not the way it should be. I shouldn't have to take the time out of my day to come over here and address this. Emails should suffice. Correspondence should suffice. But I'll show up. I'll continue to show up because my elderly neighbors have given up. They can't even go into their property, some of them. When there's a major rain event, they have to leave. They have to stay with friends, which that's unacceptable. I mean, so the county needs to either maintain what it has. I know it prides itself on cutting staff. You need to hire people. If people pay their taxes, you need to have the employees available to take care of it. And if you don't want to hire employees, you need to have a proper contractors. And if people aren't administering the programs properly, you need to fire them and hire someone that will do it. Because all this hot air, it's just hot air. And it's aggravating. It really is. So I thank you for your time. Hopefully, I don't know. I made a public records request. Only part of it was fulfilled, not the rest. So I don't know what I have to do to get this moving, but I'm important just as much as every one of these people in here. So I would expect some common courtesy and respect in returning my calls or reaching out to me. I shouldn't have to go through my county commissioner. It's unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address public comment? Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Well, I come here today with kindness. Gabby Rothman, 637 Southeast Goldenrod Road, Port St. Lucie. I recently launched a new business, G4 Strategies. I'm a marketing and consulting firm, helping small businesses grow, nonprofits grow. But today I want to come and thank Commissioner Townsend. She took the time to write me a beautiful letter and welcome me to the business community. And it was such a goodwill gesture, and I'm grateful for that, for her taking the time. So thank you, Commissioner Townsend, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else wishing to address public comment? Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Christina Bell. I'm with Destin Beach, Inc., and I take it this is the appropriate time to address the anchoring limitation area.
So you could do that now. However, that is a public hearing item, so it would be a little more impactful if you did it with the presentation, but it's completely
Would
up
you
to
like
you.
me to wait so everyone else can hear?
It is completely up to you.
I'm here. Let's expedite.
You got it.
Okay. Again, Christina Bell, Destin Beach, Inc., and we agree with keeping the channel open and safe. We need formal written assurance that this ordinance can be modified if it's passed. Our community will benefit by having both the mooring fields and the anchoring limitation areas. Let's start the feasibility study to find the best locations for both the mooring and the ALAs. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're still in public comment. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Seeing no movement, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and come back to the board for our proclamation.
Resolution number 25-143, a resolution proclaiming the month of July 2025 as Parks and Recreation Month in St. Lucie County, Florida. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners of St. Lucie County, Florida has made the following determinations. Parks and Recreation is an integral part of communities throughout this country, including St. Lucie County. Parks and Recreation promotes health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks, time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being, and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's. Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. Parks and Recreation is a leading provider of healthy meals, nutritional services, and education. Parks and Recreation programming and education activities such as out-of-school time programming, youth sports, and environmental education are critical to childhood development. Park and Recreation increases a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. Parks and Recreation is fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community and is essential and adaptable infrastructure that makes our communities resilient in the face of natural disasters and climate change. Our parks and natural recreation areas ensure ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. The U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month. Now, therefore, be resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of St. Lucie County, Florida. This board does hereby proclaim the month of July 2025 as Parks and Recreation Month in St. Lucie County, Florida. Passed and duly adopted this 22nd day of July 2025.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we have Joy with us, and then Joy, once you say a few words, let's have the whole team come up and do a photo.
Definitely, thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. For the record, Joy Harthorn, Parks and Recreation Director. On behalf of the entire Parks and Recreation Department, I am truly honored to accept this proclamation recognizing July as Parks and Recreation Month. This recognition is a powerful reminder of the essential roles parks, open spaces, and recreational programs play in the well-being of our community. Here in St. Lucie County, our parks are more than just green spaces. They are places where families come together, where children play, where seniors stay active, and where residents and visitors of all ages find happiness and connection. Each playground, athletic field, community special event represents the tireless work our dedicated Parks and Recreation team who care deeply about making St. Lucie County the best place to live, play, and discover. We take pride in creating these spaces and programs for everyone to enjoy. These efforts would not be possible without the continued support of our leadership, our dedicated community partners, and the residents who believe in the power of parks. As we celebrate Parks and Recreation Month, we invite you to get out, go outside, explore a park, a beach, and attend a recreation program, and experience firsthand how parks build strong, resilient communities. Thank you again for this recognition and for your ongoing commitment to Parks and Recreation. We really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. They're still coming. Yeah.
Yeah, tall people in back. You too. Can't
From on
run
the
it.
inside. There you go. You can stack it here, right? Perfect. All right. Everybody looking this way? Eyes open? Got it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you. All right. All right. Moving along, going into consent. There is
Madam
an
Chair.
item,
Bring it number 9.
I just want to, approval of minutes. I already put a check mark by it. Just kidding. Someone's got to keep me on track over here. So we need approval of the minutes for the July 1st meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to consent agenda. I do say I would like to pull 10B1 for discussion. Is there anyone else that would like to pull anything?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Townsend?
I would like to pull 10J2. I don't want a separate vote. I just want to bring recognition to it that this has been something that's been going on for over a year, and it's nice to see that the find is
The derelict.
coming up with money with the derelict boats. We're finally moving forward. I know that there's a lot of calls that come in on that, and I think it's important for us as commissioners to educate them and let them know that this has been going on for over a year, and we're finally seeing movement.
Yeah.
And Find has been a good partner in all this too. So,
Absolutely.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Cosby?
I'd like to pull 10D2,
For a separate vote or just comment?
separate vote.
Okay. All right, anyone else wishing to pull anything? If not, I'll entertain a motion with those two items excluded.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, 10B1, that's going to be the meeting policy times. I would like to make a suggestion that obviously the first Tuesday is fine, it's status quo. Instead of double stacking the third Tuesday, my thought is to keep the informal the second Tuesday. And again, some of the reason of that is thinking about the nuts and bolts, how far behind we all get if we're sitting up here for 4 or 5 hours at a time. You're not returning emails, you're getting behind on calls, and obviously the same happens for staff. And then, God help me, I just can't sit for 6 hours at a time. My ADHD will just... So, plus, not for nothing, our informals have been running about 3 hours, 2 hours, 45 minutes, so I don't want to have to keep pushing 45 minutes of a meeting off to another day or another time. So I don't know if there's any other thoughts or consideration, but that would be my suggestion is the 6 o'clock first Tuesday meeting, a informal on the second Tuesday, and then the third meeting that third Tuesday, starting at 3, but coming back for the public hearings at 6, right? Yeah, at 6.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Cosby.
would you want the second Tuesday's informal to start at 1 or 9?
I'm open.
I kind of like the idea of 1, that way you can kind of have a little time to have a meeting prior to, in case it goes super long.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
I would like for it to stay at 9 a.m.
9.
I mean, at 2,
Yeah.
I mean, we have Monday, we have the week leading up to it. You know, staff has a lot to do, and it's worked, so I don't know why we need to change it. And also because they have been going all morning long, and if we start them later in the afternoon, I'm already having to shift my morning.
Yeah.
What used to be my morning appointments, I'm having to shift in the afternoon, and the last 2 months, I've had to actually reschedule because we've gone over. So I'm not interested in moving it, and I'm not even interested in moving the third Tuesday. I think if we're going to move it, we need to move it to 6 o'clock. We're defeating the purpose because the developers, the staff, everybody is used to that calendar, and if we're going to do it at 3, that's going to be very confusing to a lot of people. So if we're going to move it, I think if the goal is to let the community be heard, then we just need to move it to 6 o'clock and just have our meetings, both of them, at 6 p.m.
Any thought on that? I mean, I'm good with that. My thing is, I think 6 o'clock at night for the public hearing portion is easier for your average resident that's working 8 to 5 to get here and participate. Again, I'm not opposed doing sort of the everyday run-of-the-mill stuff earlier, but if the will of the board thinks that that's a little too confusing, it's fine with me as well.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Cosby?
I'd be fine with keeping the second Tuesday informal at 9 a.m. I think that's pretty standard at this point. It allows it to be a morning meeting. I'm not opposed to the third. Is that right? The third Tuesday?
Yes.
Being at 6. I don't know what the rest of us think, because we were considering starting it at 3 and then adjourning and then coming back at 6. I mean, if we loaded all the presentations and proclamations and things like that at 3, maybe that would be a way to do that. And but I'm open to either way, so I'd love to hear what the rest of us think.
Commissioner Lee, Commissioner Flowers, any input?
I actually like well, first of all, let me state up front that the reason for these changes is to get more constituent participation and to make it easier for y'all. I actually, whatever works for that end, I'm open to. I happen to like the breaking up the meetings on the evenings because of past history. As far as the informal, I would think common sense in my mind is saying the 9 o'clock is going to get more public participation. But again, this is something that is changing, and to me, I think we should be considered a live document, so to speak, that if it doesn't work, we can always change it back. But right now I'm for changing the meeting on Thursdays, and the informal, I'm good with 9 o'clock on Monday, or whatever day it was.
Tuesday. Madam Chair,
Commissioner Lowry?
this is something that I really could go either way with. I feel like maybe 6 o'clock would be a better time for residents to be able to attend. So I'm on board. Splitting it up may be easier than having the informal and regular formal meeting all on one day.
Okay. So it sounds like there's consensus for, nothing had changed about the first Tuesday. Second Tuesday is the informal. There's consensus to leave it at 9 a.m. Is that correct? Majority? Yes. Okay, so we have majority on that. And then the third Tuesday meeting, do we want to start at 3 and adjourn at 6, or are we good with just starting at 6 for everything?
Madam Chair, I think to be less confusing to the public and not having all these wacky times, it's easier to just say our meetings are at 6 p.m. and our meeting, we know the informal is at 9, and that way, if there's a lot that y'all want to cover, then Wednesday's going to be an all day. We'll break for lunch, come back, and it simplifies everything. It's less confusing to the public.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Cosby.
So just that way the public out there listening knows, typically we only have more controversial public hearings at our 6 p.m. meeting, which prior to this, that would be like PUDs and these sorts of things, development projects. That would only normally be on the 6 p.m. meeting, and then we have a 9 a.m. meeting, this one. We're talking about moving this meeting to 6 p.m. So that way we have 2 6 p.m. meetings, and we can split the load of anything that we consider controversial to allow the public better access to our meetings. I would be in support of that.
Okay. All right, so it sounds like there's consensus. So if that's the case, if someone wants to make the motion and clarify the meeting times, Commissioner Townsend? Throwing it to you.
I move that we change, the first and second meetings remain the same, as always, and the third meeting will move to 6 p.m. For our regular and public hearings to be heard. So the meeting will go from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Wait a second. You said the meeting would go from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.? Oh, I see. So first
It's not
Tuesday,
going to be 9 a.m. anymore. It will be moved to 6 p.m.
Right. First Tuesday, 6 p.m.
Third
Second
Tuesday,
Tuesday,
6 p.m.
informal, 9 a.m. Third Tuesday, 6 p.m.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Landry?
Madam Chair, with that, do you want to keep the October starting at FY26 beginning of the year, since the rest of the month is a little hectic with budget meetings and all sorts of different times, and then we get into that? Do you want to start with neither the first of the year or probably the first of the year, I mean January, or when do you want to start it? October 1, January 1? We got a lot of, the holidays are a little squirrely with meetings as well, so it's more or less when would you like to make it effective?
So, Madam Chair, I'll
Commissioner
restate the
Townsend.
motion. I move that we are relieving our meetings the first and second the same, and the third will begin at 6 p.m., and the new schedule will take effect October.
All right, perfect. So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Commissioner Clasby, over to you for 10D2.
Yeah, so 10D2 is an agenda item that I believe Commissioner Townsend brought to us at an informal meeting regarding the potential acquisition of buildings located at the flight school of the Treasure Coast International Airport. I've had several other conversations with some people in the community. Originally, I thought that for some reason, in my mind, it seemed like that was linked to the other item we were talking about, the airport. And I thought that they were just linked together, and it turns out they're not. Unless I'm wrong, I could be corrected, but I'm not interested in purchasing the flight school as a county. I think that, if the flight school ends up leaving, eventually it just is going to lead to lower rent, and then we could acquire it for a cheaper rate. I think that the time is on our side. It doesn't seem of the time is of the essence with this, and I'd like to table it at this time.
All right.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Townsend.
So time is of the essence, okay? This building is for sale. There's multiple people wanting it. And in the direction that the airport's going and the future commercial flight, the whole point of taking this is looking at something that's $10, $11 million to purchase this, to have it, and let the flight school rent for now. Whenever the airline comes in and wants to be there, we don't have to come up with $40 million to build what they need. And there is other items like simulators and everything inside the building that can be sold to refund part of the cost back again. So out of everything going on at the airport, this is the most important thing that we can make in a decision of moving the airport forward. If we do not obtain this building right now, we will not get this building, because I know of 3 other people wanting to purchase this building right now. The owner has sat back and he is wanting the county to take it because of our vision and many conversations with him. And if this does not move forward, he will be selling it to somebody else. So this is a priority.
I'll just chime in a quick second. So, Commissioner Clasby, I'll share that I'm still very uncertain about this, right? If it was a much shorter lease, right, it would make things much easier, but this lease goes through to I think it's 2080. It's another 40 or 50 years. And this is just an attempt to negotiate. So, and you did hear, so we own the land. That's why I asked that question at the informal, which I knew that we did. And that's why I brought that up, because I want to make sure that's not part of the negotiations, that we're not paying basically for our land that we already own. The other thing, it's important that they are willing to come off of that lease. So again, this is not today, we're pulling the trigger, write the check. This is just allowing the team to try to negotiate and see what we can come up with. And so that's why for me, I'm comfortable approving it, because it's just a discussion basically at the end of the day. But I will share, I'm not sold. If this was a vote to purchase today, I'm not sure I would be there yet, but just figured I'd share. I'm not thinking too much differently than you probably, but I don't think now's the time to stop it, to allow the conversations to be had, see what terms we can come up with, and then see if that makes better sense for us. Because again, we don't want to get hamstrung and not be able to do what we need to do and it end up costing us more money. So that's my thought process. I figured I'd share that with you because, again, I'm uneasy about it as well. But I have comfort in knowing, again, this is not pull the trigger. This is just conversation.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Clasby.
Mr. Landry, with doing this, is this going to put us on the hook for spending money to determine anything about this is going to cost money? Will you approve this?
Part of our due diligence, if we get a price negotiated and a thing negotiated, is we'll want to do some assessments of some of the buildings for condition, things of that nature, to know what we have to demo, what we may not have to, things like that. So we would be having to spend some money doing some inspections and some things that way on there. The extent of that, we don't know what it is, but we would incur some cost if we, to make sure as we present a adequate proposal to purchase that we encumber all of those, look
you
at
got
all
a
that stuff.
ballpark with 5,000, 10,000, 100,000?
In today's market, you could say anywhere from 10 to 50K probably to figure out everything, depending on what we have to look at and how in-depth we got to get. I'm sure there's some other things, that we might have to look at. We could get with property acquisitions and the county attorney to see what other things we'd have to do as part of our due diligence, moving forward if we were to get some sort of negotiated term.
I mean, $50K, that's more than I made as a teacher, so it's one of those things where I don't want to acquire the properties. I wouldn't want to spend $50,000 on this. So that's why I would be voting against it today.
Gotcha. Mr. Landry, quick question as well. So for us to start the negotiation process, we wouldn't necessarily need to go in and spend the money right away, right? First, we would go in and have some talks and see if there's some common ground and see if there's even a path to move forward before we pull the trigger on checking to see what it would cost to either demo or rehab these buildings. Is that accurate?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, that would be accurate. We would first try to negotiate a price and also negotiate with APP about getting it out of the lease. If we get those two things accomplished in an area that staff feels is reasonable, then we would, if part of that agreement with them is let them know that we'd have our due diligence and all the things that we'd have to do to move it forward before we asked you to pull the trigger on the purchase. And at any point in time, if any of those off-ramps provided something that we didn't like, we would be able to walk away from it. So we would have to, that would be kind of the steps on how we would do it, very informally, how we would approach it. So the conversations are obviously just time between staff and the folks, but once we get past that point, then we would,
So we
come
could
back to
make someone could make a motion to allow you guys to negotiate, but to stop short of expending any funds without board approval. Is that something that we could basically amend or make the motion to?
Unless the county attorney says otherwise, I think we could do
Sorry,
that.
Mr. McIntyre,
I think we could do that and come back to you.
I can.
Sure, you could make that motion. You're taking a separate vote anyway, so if you want to amend the recommendation now is to direct staff to negotiate. If you want to add a condition not to spend any money without prior board approval, that's perfectly acceptable.
Just a thought. You
Madam
know
Chair.
me, I'm always looking for a compromise. Commissioner Clasby.
So even though I'm saying that I don't want the property, I wouldn't say that we should negotiate for a property sight unseen. I think that if we're going to be serious about acquiring the property, we definitely should get a full examination of what's there, because we already own the land. Essentially, we're buying the infrastructure that's there because they're not in a lease with us. So, I would want more details about the lease, how long they're planning to be there should we acquire the building, because if we're just buying a big garbage pile, which could potentially be there that needs to be demoed, that's much less valuable. So then that $50K would be a good investment, but I'm saying I think that this could end up taking care of itself, it sounds like to me. And if a private company wants to rent it, I mean, there's a lot of land at the airport.
Any other?
Madam Chair.
Oh.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner.
Commissioner Lowry and then Commissioner Townsend.
Yeah, I'm kind of along the same path with Commissioner Fowler. A little uneasy just about a couple things as far as, the age of the buildings and the condition they're in. So I think if we took some time just to investigate that without spending $50,000 would be a good move, because I don't want to completely put it out the window, but I think it could be good for commercial airlines for down the road. But if we made a motion to do that, I'd feel comfortable giving a little bit of time till they get that information together.
Commissioner Townsend.
So we have already done an appraisal on this. We've already inspected the property. We've already determined that the housing needs to be bulldozed down. We've already determined that that is where we are going to put extra parking, because we need property for extra parking when we have redone the terminal for the airline to come in that's currently coming, okay? So those have already been done. We know that the dorms are uninhabitable. They're not worth putting money into. So we've started this thing. We've already started this process. I think that maybe this needs to go back on an informal, because maybe you didn't understand the whole concept of this. We're already doing what we've needed to do and we've determined, which is how we got to the number that we're talking to them about. So as this states here, that this is to have the conversation to see if they're willing to come to what we were thinking of an appraised value. And conversations have already been started to see if APP is going to release us from, we don't want to pay rent for property we own, right? But we know, and it's been determined with the plan of the airport, that we needed some of that land for our permanent parking moving forward. So that was another part of this piece. of why we were looking to purchase this. So we already have the answers, Commissioner Cosby. I mean, we know the dorms have to be tore down. We know that the hangar's in good sight. We know that the school where they obtain them, their residency right now is in good sight. The school wants to continue to stay there. They don't want to go anywhere. And I would say that they would continue to stay. I've had some basic conversations with them. They know that we are looking at the property. So I don't want y'all to think that we have not done anything. We have already invested. We've already paid for the survey to happen on this property. Is that correct, Maite?
So we have not done physical assessments of the buildings, but we have paid for appraisals, and the appraisers have visited the sites and taken photos, which are included in those documents, but we have not physically gone there or anything or done particular assessments of structures or infrastructure or anything else. And obviously that would be next steps if you choose to move forward with this item.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner.
So I happen to agree with Commissioner Townsend. We need the property. We are looking, or I guess there's 2 or 3 airlines looking at us, and the ramp space is what I'm hearing is going to be one of the biggest challenges, which this gives us more ramp space. The parking, as she had mentioned, 60 parking spaces is not going to be enough. We're going to need additional. Do I like spending money on property that we currently own? But no, but we don't own the buildings on them, and the potential that this could bring into the county for the constituents and the ability to move forward quickly. This is the only area. It's one of the reasons I've been saying I'd like to see the master plan for the airport, because I'm not 100% convinced that this side of the airport is going to be good for commercial. But we're not going in full-fledged with 5 airlines coming in. This is going to be, if we get one, a little commuter, and then maybe 2. But eventually we're going to have to figure out the airport and what we want. But in the interim, this property is, in my opinion, a necessity. And quite frankly, if we find out we made a mistake, the demand on it is there. We're not going to have a problem getting rid of it. So I would like to see this moving forward with the negotiations, and then obviously before we make a commitment, it would come back to the board anyway.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Cosby.
So if we're looking to purchase the leased buildings on our own property, and there's a tenant there with a contract and a lease, do we know the terms of removing that lease? Is there some sort of fine or penalty for canceling that lease should we want to use this property sooner than their lease terminates?
We don't have all those answers right now. We are working with our outside attorneys that are particular to the airport and do aeronautical type work. They are reviewing all the leases and everything else pertaining to the flight school and the leases between the owner and the tenant of their, the flight school tenant. We will be getting more information in about a week, and we already have meetings scheduled with each of you individually to go over those details.
I would feel more comfortable if we had that presented to us as a future informal meeting, because if there's a very high bar for terminating the lease, what's the point of, if it's $1 million to terminate the lease, that's $1 more million. I don't know what it is, and she just said that no one knows, so I would like to find out that information before we expend up to $50,000 on assessing the building.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner
I'll make a
Thompson.
motion to move this item forward so that we can move on with the meeting, please. I'm totally comfortable with this. I know that we need this in order to continue to move forward with the vision of our airport.
And Commissioner Townsend, are you, would you be willing to add in a caveat that no money, just so there's a little bit of comfort for Commissioner Clasby, that the team will come back to us to spend more money towards this endeavor?
Yeah, I'm fine with that, because right now we already have the appraisal, and that's the beginning of it. We've already paid for the appraisal,
Yeah.
and so they have to go in and they have to negotiate that price. At that point, then if they can get there, if they will accept what it comes in at appraised value, then is when more stuff would have to happen. So I'm fine with that, because if we do not reach an agreement with them and settle some conversation happening with this building is done. It's gone. It's going to be purchased.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Clasby?
Could we clarify what amount of money we're talking about spending if we should move to acquire it?
So the appraisals were in the range of $8 to $10 million. Obviously, there would be part of the negotiation of where we would settle because we haven't gotten to all the terms of getting out of the lease. We don't know the details of the parameters between the two parties that were not a subject to their sublease. So that would be part of our negotiation.
And where would we acquire that money from?
It would be from reserves. We do not have anything budgeted for this. It would be borrowing from the reserves, and if eventually there was some profit made on it or, income coming from rent or other things, then we would pay back that amount.
So, given that, I have other projects in my mind that are higher priority to spend $10 million on, so that's why I would also be against this.
Okay, well, I've made the motion
Understood.
to move it forward, so.
There hasn't been a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, will you call the roll for this item?
Commissioner Lowry,
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Clasby,
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Lee,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Townsend,
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Fowler.
Yes, ma'am. All right. That item passes. Good discussion. Good discussion. That brings us into our public hearings. And Mr. McIntyre, you are up, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item, as you indicated, is a public hearing. It pertains to a proposed ordinance that, if adopted, would create anchoring limitation areas. This item will be presented initially by Assistant County Attorney Jean Stasio. She will be joined by Mr. Revord and his team, who are actually the technical experts on this.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jean Stasio, Assistant County Attorney. The first ordinance today is amending Chapter 50 of the Code to provide for the creation of anchoring limitation areas. The ordinance provides definitions, applicability, and establishes the anchoring limitation areas, and also provides for exemptions. Yesterday, the City of Fort Pierce approved a proposed interlocal agreement that will be before this board later in the agenda to provide for the city's cooperation in the implementation and enforcement of the proposed anchoring limitation areas. Staff recommends approval and is here for any questions.
All right. Short and sweet. I like it. We have everyone loaded up here, so I'll bring it back to the board. Questions, comments?
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Townsend?
So I do have a couple questions. I want confirmation that the way I'm understanding this is accurate, please. So the ALA is a way for us to move forward, but it's much different than the mooring fields. The mooring fields are anchors in the ground where boats anchor. It's more secure of the boat. So if you're dealing with new boaters, where they don't anchor properly, whatever. Of course, that can happen to an experienced person as well. And in the mooring fields, which is what most of the counties on the waterways have in Florida, the ALA, you don't charge. They just can come in and anchor up within that area. So I'm just going to say that my concern is we have become a dumping ground. The other counties have mooring fields, and it is very well regimented. They pay to be there. It is policed. It has empowered the Sheriff's Department and the Coast Guards to be able to maintain what they have to maintain. We also have something going on out there where pedophiles have figured out they can get a boat and they can go live on the boat, and they do not have to identify their address with the Sheriff's Department because they don't have an address. They're living amok out there in the water. So moving forward, I see this as a path forward, but I would like for us to eventually end up at the end of the day with mooring fields so that there's accountability. It's an income coming in. We know that the city's going to run it. The city's going to go out there and let the boats dump in their waste and everything. We're going to be partnering with the city. So I'm not totally comfortable having ALAs and stopping at that. This is a beginning, and if it's a beginning to get us to the mooring fields where there will be accountability at the end of the day, then I'm okay with this starting this way. But I don't know that all of you have had the in-depth conversations you've needed to really understand the difference between an ALA and a mooring field, because most counties do not have the ALAs. They have the accountability, and I'm really tired of people coming here and thinking that we're a dumping ground and sitting here and dumping and hanging out there just like the other counties bringing their homeless people here and dropping them off at the county line. We need to start standing up. We need to start holding people accountable for what they're doing to us in this county, because we are just as good as the counties to the north and south. So that's my 2 cents.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Glassy.
So this is, I think I might have been talking with Josh about this the first day I came into office, because I'm on the water frequently, as often as I can. And, you know, amongst boaters in Fort Pierce, sailboats are typically the #1 complaint. Everybody assumes that they're dumping their wastewater into the river, because you never see anybody getting anything pumped out, and they don't move. So, and I wanted to thank Miss Christina Bell as well. Had a conversation with her in my office going on into the wee hours of the evening last night, and I think that we had a breakthrough, and I was a little concerned that maybe some people in the public were getting the wrong idea of what an ALA is. It's not a replacement for a mooring field. In fact, it would enhance a potential future mooring field, because it's a limiting. So one of the confusing points was, well, we don't want to encourage people to anchor along the inlet. Well, that's exactly what an ALA is. It's not an anchoring encouraging area, it's an anchoring limitation area. So it gives us the ability to have law enforcement, which thankfully Fort Pierce has courageously stepped up, and I'm very thankful for that, to police. It gives us the ability to go confront some of these boats that are not moving. And my take confirmed last night that there are considerable penalties for violating the ALA. So this is something that truly will help. And one more thing, because this was a concerning point, that the process to change the boundaries of the ALA, my take, could you just go over that real quick? Are we able to change the boundaries of the ALA once we set them?
Absolutely. So this is a local ordinance that you're adopting to establish these areas. It's going into your code of ordinances if you choose to adopt it today. We would go through the same enactment process of public hearings, permission to advertise, coordinating with Fish and Wildlife Service to modify the boundaries if you choose to in the future.
And I know there was also some concern about having the ALA, you know, the polygon go over the channels. Perhaps Josh could maybe comment on that. Like, why was the polygon drawn to include like the ICW or the in between the channels? Is that an issue?
So Joshua Reavor, Director of Port Inlet and Beaches, for the record. I'm joined with Tim Fontaine with Coastal Tech and Dean Kubitschek with the City Marina. There is no overlap with the channels. The intent, back to Commissioner Townsend comment, the intent of ALA was to lessen the burden within our main thoroughfare through the inlet. So when Dean Kubitschek and the City Marina approached me when I first took this position, the idea was, how do we lessen the impact of encroachment into that corridor? The new legislation that was passed, I believe in 21 or 22, allowed for local municipalities to draft ordinances to, I'm going to say this loosely, police these areas so that we can understand who's dumping their vessel and not tending to it. So the premise of our original investigation, which did the graphical analysis, was really about where do we put these so that we can make sure everyone that enjoys the inlet can do so without encumbrance. It actually helps us too on the back end with derelict vessels, because that is a prime location where you do not want to have a derelict vessel. So the idea that anchoring limitation areas and mooring fields, that we picked one over the other, is not the case. The case was the lowest hanging fruit. We have an ability with a small amount of financial input to establish a zone that gives us the premise to be in the water every single day. The reason why we have a backlog of derelict vessels, the reason why we have nefarious things happen, is we do not have the police enforcement that we need on the water. How do we deal with that? We coordinate with the city, who's been amenable to being on the water every single day, to make contact with people that are living aboard, to figure out who's out there doing nefarious things, and to promote good practice, best management practices for pump out, for anchoring within vicinity of the main navigation channel. So in no way, shape, or form was this meant to be in lieu of mooring fields. This was the lowest hanging fruit that we could go without any budget, or very, very small budget, to really make a big dent in a proactive approach to policing our areas. Now, if the board wants to consider looking at a feasibility study at a mooring field, we certainly can do that. I'll note that we do actively have a mooring field. It's a privately owned one with slips available. If there's an appetite to do even more, we certainly can do that. But there is a financial input to establish one. And the findings of that can't be predetermined. If we're going to go in that direction, we need to make sure that we promote it in a safe location. We can't promote it in an area that's adjacent to a private entity who doesn't want it. We can't promote it, in my opinion, in the middle of the inlet where we would require dinghy operators to go in and out and amongst the main navigation channels. So we certainly can do that assessment, like the facts drive us to where it would be, and then find the financial ability to make that happen. More than happy to do that. But again, lowest hanging fruit, this allows for us to, in the next month or two, establish buoys, get a presence on the water, and that presence on the water will allow for us to coordinate daily with FWC. So when they're out there 1 or 2 times a week, they can make those stops that they need to make to get ahead of the curve. We're just changing the paradigm. We're going to have a presence on the water, period.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Cosby.
Yes, I think that this is ultimately a force multiplier for an eventual mooring field if you're looking at the objective of encouraging sailboats to not be moored in the inlet and becoming navigational hazards. So I'm in full support of this at this time.
I'd like to add one more thing, Madam Chair. New state statute just going into effect January 1, so in a few months now. There's going to be a requirement that if vessels are going to stay in one location for more than 14 days, they have to register the vessel. I'm saying this because if we have the presence on the water, it's going to be very easy for us to identify boats that have stayed in one location for a very long period of time, to at least make sure we know who's there, what they're doing, because they have to register with the state. So Dean and his group, while they're out there doing this policing on ALA in coordination with FWC, they will be able to take assessment of all the other areas outside of ALA, which will help us to at least know who our neighbors are.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Lowry.
Excuse me. I kind of all over the place with this at first because I was trying to understand the difference, but now that I'm very comfortable with it, I think Ms. Bell's concern is just being part of the conversation moving forward, and I think that this is the first step, like you said, the lowest hanging fruit, and then we can get there. But I'd just love to have her part of the conversation, she's our neighbor, and look forward to that continued partnership with her.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Lowry, that's exactly the intent. We also, too, in our interlocal with the city, have committed to at least annually reviewing their policing efforts, our locations, to correct any deficiencies. Again, this is new legislation. We don't know exactly how everything's going to unfold. So if a boundary needs to move, if we need to shrink something, if we need to expand something based on evidence we see in the field, we certainly reserve the right to do that.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Cosby.
One more thing. This morning I met with the president of the Fort Pierce South Beach Association, and he informed me that the entire board is, in fact, in support of the ALA.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Lee.
Full support on it. Question, though, regarding the policing, how does that work? And let me back up. Registration and policing, how does that work?
So it's going to be an active coordination with FWC. The good thing is that I believe Dean has an office for an FWC officer at the city marina. The hope is that their staff can go out, take assessment of what vessels within the designated boundaries, be able to identify VIN number, be able to geolocate, and document that day in and day out. The way the rule is written, 45 days, once you've hit that point, law enforcement can be engaged. So it's really going to be on Dean and his crew to make sure that they have that continuous log of data so that they can provide that to FWC. My guess is, though this is my gut feeling, if someone hasn't moved their vessel in 45 days when they see Dean every single day, there's a problem. And that problem is going to allow for us to engage before that vessel sinks. Again, that is the fruit of the program. It helps us get ahead of DVs and then also know who our neighbors are because we're out there. And I believe, Dean, is it correct that you guys will be putting packages together so that when you do make contact with these vessels, you're providing them with pump out information, looking at pump out logs and the like?
Commissioners, good morning. My name is Dean Kubicek. I am Marina Director for City of Fort Pierce. City of Fort Pierce also has concern with its waterways, so that's why we went ahead and put this all together and started with it. Josh and the county has been great partnerships. We'll work with them. It's been a pleasure, so I really do appreciate that. he's helped us move this thing along. There's been overwhelming concern from the public about all these anchoring of the vessels throughout the inlet. We've seen a huge growth from 2015 today. This county continues to grow. The biggest problem with this county, one of the biggest ones, is there's not enough dock space here. So when these docks get filled during the season, there's nowhere also as well for these vessels to go. When there's bad weather will drive boats into our inlet, and they will go ahead and anchor out until the weather breaks, and they will continue to go ahead and move on. They will head to the south, they will head to the Bahamas. We have become this area has become a major destination and hub for boaters. It's quite different than what it was when I got here 29 years ago. So now, when people were bypassing this area, they're now making a point of stopping in. So we need to go ahead and be able to manage these boats that are coming in here. We do not want to end up like West Palm Beach, Riviera Beach, where there's boats throughout the waterway with, I mean, it literally is a dumping ground there. And that's a problem they have to work through. We're at the cusp of the beginning and of this whole thing where we might be able to manage this issue and get in front of it. So Josh has done a great job with that, with removal of a lot of vessels here recently. So with that, my staff, two of my staff right now are code enforcement officers. I send them to code enforcement school. We have a boat that's marked code enforcement. We are not police officers. If we have any issues associated with anybody on a vessel, what we are going to do is depart that vessel. We will go ahead and get Fort Pierce Police Department, who has agreed to work with us, the Sheriff's Department. They're excited about this as well. FWC, you know, they're also all in on this as well. So law enforcement wise, I think we have the support to do what we need to do on the waterway. So it is a process, it is a beginning, it is a start. From there, like I said, each and every year we'll sit down, we'll evaluate the process, see what needs to be worked on. But again, it is a beginning. So, and we have to start somewhere.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Lee.
Do one last question. Regarding the registration, is there going to be an online, do the boaters know how to do that, or is that going to be through the
It's a state requirement, but it hasn't went into effect yet. So they're still figuring out those details.
How to do it.
What I'm saying is that since we're going to have the presence on the water, it's going to give us the ability to take hold of that option and allow for us to get the best situation out of the situation.
Mine was mostly for the constituents that are listening that are anchoring out there, which probably hardly any of
Frankly,
them are.
I don't know the
Is there a
exact
website or what?
information yet, but once it comes available, we're just going to use that as a tool in our toolbox. Since we have presence on the water, if someone sees something and it's been there for a while, it just gives us the ability to go over and encourage them to register to make sure we know what they're up to and what they're doing.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Townsend.
Yes, I mean, so, and I agree with you, Dean and Josh. This is the beginning of what's needed to happen, which Josh and I have had conversations since he first went into this position. And Dean, you have always been a leader out there at that marina. And so I know that this program is going to work because I know that you stay on top of things. And it is going to give us the opportunity to know what's going on out there to stop what has begun. So I'm not saying anything negative about this. I'm saying this is the beginning of something, but we need to have the conversations moving forward towards the mooring fields at the end of the day. But again, like Josh said, that's a lot of money to meet that requirement. So we need to have that conversation at an informal and say, is that a goal 5 years down the road? We want to be at this point, or 10 years, or is there money available in state that we can get a grant for something like this, stuff like that. And with the vision that Josh has shared with us of that down there at the museum, with the boutiques and the little restaurants and stuff, we he shared that vision with us. We were all in support of that, right? So that's why it's important that if we're going to go that direction, that we begin and we have this in the water, because this is basically, it's a marina out there in the water is what it is, right? It's no different than being on ground going down the dock. So we have the chance now to begin this, and we need to do it right from the very beginning and be mindful. So I don't want y'all to think it was negative, is that I want us to see it into the next level beyond that.
Yeah, if the board, if you guys want me to move into a feasibility study to look for siting of a marina and general cost associated, or a mooring field, we certainly can do that. Just let me know and we'll get on it.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Cosby?
you know, with all due respect to sailboaters and everything, it's a wonderful lifestyle, but the people that I've talked to, a considerable number of people about this, I've polled everybody at the Cove, and the general consensus is that these things end up as floating trailer parks.
Mhm.
So, you know, there's crime associated with some of this stuff, and it's, you know, we want to be very careful about where we would place a mooring field. I agree that it is a potential revenue generator for the county and a potential amenity for mariners, but, you know, I wouldn't want to hastily pick a side. We want to make sure we pick a really good one. So, yeah, I think that might be a future conversation, but do we have to?
So this is a public hearing, so I do still need to open it to the public. If we're good with discussion for right now, I'll go ahead and do that. Okay. All right. Anyone wishing to address the board on this item? This is a public hearing item. Please come up to the podium at this time. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close it and bring it back to the board.
Like the motion for approval?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Awesome. Just one more point of clarification. So now that we have approved the ordinance and we've approved the city interlocal, well, that'll come up next, but once those are approved, we'll be moving to submit applications to the state for the buoys and markers associated with the ALA. It is not live until those buoys and markers are placed, so you're going to have to give us another month or so to get into that regimen of doing construction to get those up. So just to brief you guys on timeline.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Josh. All right.
Very good. Thank you,
All
everyone.
right, thank you, guys.
Thank
I appreciate it. I'm going into the second item. This is going to be for our Chapter 36, Roads and Bridges. Morning, Patrick.
Yes, Madam Chair, this item also is a public hearing, as you indicated, also being presented by Ms. Stasio.
Thank you.
Okay, the second ordinance proposes to amend the code to establish right-of-way permit and revocable license agreement processes and procedures. The ordinance provides applicability, definitions, permit conditions, and delegates the authority to the Public Works Director to issue and revoke right-of-way permits and revocable license agreements. Staff is recommending approval and is available for any questions.
All right, this is a public hearing item. Anyone wishing to address the board? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment, come back to the board. Questions, comments? If not, I'll take a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, Mr. McIntyre, item number 3.
Yes, this was a little different, Madam Chair and board members. We're going to recommend that you continue this to August the 5th at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter. There was a glitch in the advertising on one of the components of the advertising, so just in an abundance of caution, we believe it's appropriate to do that. Typically, when we do continue these, if anybody's here for this, it would be better if you could wait till August the 5th. It'd be more impactful. But if you know you can't be here on the 5th, then of course we could accept public comment. You will need to open the public hearing and then continue it.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open this item up to public comment. Anyone here wishing to address the board on this item that may not be able to make it back on August 5th? Seeing no movement, I'm going to close public comment, come back to the board.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Clasby?
I'd like to motion to table this to August 5th or soon thereafter.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in
And that's
favor?
at 6 p.m.
At
or
6
as
p.m.
soon
or soon
thereafter.
thereafter.
And the effect of the motion will be to continue it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving into Public Works. Ms. Barb Gettler, good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. For the record, Barbara Gettler, MSBU Coordinator. The board created the Culvert Assistance Program to give property owners the option to fund the replacement of failed culverts through non-ad valorem assessments. Today's resolution is the assessment resolution as required by county ordinance. The purpose of this resolution relates to the imposition and collection of special assessments to fund stormwater culvert improvements within the MSBU, determine that real property therein will be specially benefited, establish a method of assessing the cost of the improvements, and approve the assessment roll. Staff recommends board approval of resolution number 2025-146 and authorization for the chair to sign documents as approved by the county attorney.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing item. Anyone wishing to address the board? Seeing no movement, I'm going to close and come back to the board for a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Madam
Thank you.
Chair, can I ask,
Mhm.
moving forward, these don't come up that often, but when they do, is there any way that she can be put
It was
as number one on
supposed to be.
public hearing so that we
Yeah.
don't have to hold her here for the
I
whole day?
think budget, maybe it got forgotten about because actually US on the dais and I had already asked in my office, so.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm sorry, Barb.
No problem.
All right, moving right into our regular agenda.
Madam Chair, since we've already just discussed this item, I'm happy to make a motion. This is the interlocal agreement between the city and us for the ALA. We just had that conversation. I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Wait, hang on a second. What did you say?
We've already had the conversation. This is just, it's confirming the agreement between us and the city for the ALAs.
The interlocal.
That was
Interlocal.
tabled until August 5th at 6 p.m.
No, the city,
No.
No,
the
sir.
the ALAs, we just
The
moved
prior
forward
item was
under
the-
public hearings.
The public conduct was. This is.
Oh.
This is, and apologize, probably should have suggested maybe it be handled at the same time, but this relates to the anchoring limitation. It's the interlocal with the city, where the city and the county are partnering to enforce it. So Commissioner Townsend thought that we had adequately discussed the issue, and so she felt it would be appropriate to move approval.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
No
Continue.
worries. All right, so we have a motion, and I'm sorry, did we get a second?
Yep,
Okay,
second.
so motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number two?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item relates to a proposed sale and purchase and leaseback of the Dorothy Joe Conrad Annex on Walton Road. We acquired the site back in 2002. We paid a land value, and then we ended up retaining an architect and a contractor to design and construct the current building that's located on the site. The building is currently occupied by the tax collector and the county's Veteran Services Department. In June of this year, we purchased and closed on a building located at 8881 US 1. The plan for that building that we purchased is to relocate the tax collector and the Veteran Services Department from the Dorothy Joe Conrad Annex. The county's Facilities Department has estimated that it will take no more than 18 months. That's a worst-case scenario. We anticipate moving it before that, but we want to make sure that we have adequate time to relocate. We've entered into discussions with the City of Port St. Lucie staff about the possibility of the city purchasing the Dorothy Joe Conrad Annex. They are interested in it, and they've actually negotiated with county staff to purchase the building and then lease it back to us. The purchase and sale agreement is for a purchase price of $4,395.20. It's based on an appraisal on an as-is value by Parrish and Edwards. The agreement also includes a payment of $427,304.80. That's pursuant to a prior settlement agreement that we entered into in June of 2021 called the City Center Settlement Agreement. The agreement provides that the county is selling it as is. We are splitting most of the due diligence costs or the closing costs, dock stamps, recording, title search, and escrow fees. The agreement also provides for a lease back of the annex that would be for a period of 18 months to allow us to relocate the current tenants for a total rent of $1. The county would be, of course, responsible for maintaining the building because it's a much below market rent. So until we relocate, it's ours for maintenance purposes. Staff recommends approval.
All right, thank you. Questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you. Number three?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This particular item relates to a proposed interlocal agreement with the City of Port St. Lucie to manage the municipal solid waste and recyclable materials for the city. The city did recently approve this. There's some time issues, so we appreciate the consideration to add this on. We have a current agreement with the city. It concerns the city does dispose its solid waste and recyclables at our county landfill. In November, we notified the city that we didn't intend to renew that as drafted because we wanted to change some of the terms, I believe. And so we've negotiated a new interlocal. It's attached. An outline of the business terms that was negotiated by county staff. The city will agree to deliver its municipal solid waste and recyclable materials to the county system. We'll agree as a county to manage and accept those materials. The city may divert up to 80% of its yard trash to other locations at the city's choice, but each fiscal year the city must deliver at least 20% of its yard trash to the county system. The county will only accept those recyclable materials that are identified in Exhibit A, and the county will charge and the city will pay the following rates that are set out on page 2 of the board memo. Beginning in October of 27, the county may adjust the per ton fee, but only if we adjust it to the residents of the unincorporated areas. The adjustment will equal to the percentage change of the consumer price index, provided a single adjustment shall not be greater than 3% of the then current fee. The county and the city will share the net profits from the county's recycling program. The county will receive 1/2 of the net revenue, in other words, 50%. The city shall receive part or all of the remaining 50% of the net revenue, subject to the provisions of Exhibit C, Section 5 of the interlocal agreement. The city's share shall be prorated based on the percentage of the total tonnage of program materials and segregated cardboard that is delivered by the city in relation to the total tonnage of those materials received by the county. There's a formula set out in the memo that I won't go through. The term of the interlocal agreement shall start on October of this year and shall end on September 30th, 2035. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Questions, comments from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Moving into OMB for our millage rates. Thanks, Rebecca.
Good morning again. For the record, Jennifer Hill, Management and Budget Director, and with me is Budget Manager Jennifer Garrity. So the budget process started with the board on June 27th when we presented you with a copy of the recommended budget book. During the week of July 7th, we had a couple of workshops. And actually, we did come back in between and had another special meeting related to the budget on July 15th. And today we are here to adopt the millage rates and public hearing dates related to the trim notices that will go out to the property owners in August. After that, in September, we will have two formal public hearings, one on September 4th and one on September 18th to adopt the tentative and final millage rates and budgets. Let's see. As a result of the discussions that we had at the budget workshops and the special, special informal meeting, we are bringing forth to you an item to give us permission to notify the property appraiser of the millage rates for the trim notices. Those millage rates are on the screen here. These are the same millage rates for each of the individual taxing districts as the current fiscal year that we are in. The public hearing dates are largely set by state law in that there are very strict guidelines of when that they have to be. There's a little bit of leeway, but they also cannot overlap with any of the other taxing authorities in St. Lucie County. So we have to coordinate amongst all of the agencies, and so typically St. Lucie County does the first and third Thursday of September, which is what we are proposing. And that is all we are looking for today, is the permission for us to notify the property appraiser of the millage rates and the public hearing dates for the trim notices. As mentioned earlier, with each of the individual millage rates, after today's vote, you will not be able to increase any of those rates. You can reduce any of them at the September 4th or the September 18th public hearings, but you will not be able to increase them.
Got it.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Mr. Landry.
just to add on to Jennifer. So as she indicated, today we're suggesting that the board adopt tentative millage rates that are equal to the current year. Understanding that this morning we had a little bit of a presentation from Mr. Fry that had some thoughts for you guys to think about that we would like to further investigate. Keep in mind with that, there also was discussion about the airport and some structures, and all of those funds would come from the same competing resources. So if we were to consider doing something less than that today, we still are working through the $3 million difference that was discussed from the last workshop. We'd have to take into account the potential of the airport property plus this, so it could have a significant impact on fund balance and reserves, as we move forward. If we do something lower today than what we're currently recommending, that doesn't mean that as we develop that and figure it out before September, and we come up with a plan or strategy that the board likes, you can obviously reserve the right to lower them later on at those September hearings if we can provide you a strategy on how to accomplish all those tasks. But keep in mind, we have been some suggestions of some things that the board would like to look at and potentially spend money on, and those all come from the same competing sources.
Got it. Jen, would you like to introduce this gentleman up here with you, ladies?
I was like, I promise you don't have to speak. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Waldo Moslin, and I was invited here by her today.
So he's hanging out with me today. I brought my child to work today.
There you go. So the reason I want to point out this young man is because we met last year. He participated in the Shadow the Commissioner. And he was interested in finance, and I remember bringing up OMB, so I am so thrilled to see you again and see you shadowing both Jen. So good to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I'll bring it back to the board. Sorry for the quick detour, guys. But questions, comments? Commissioner Clasby?
I'll talk last.
Okay. Commissioner Lee?
Madam Chair, I am for leaving the millage rate at last year's and hopefully reducing it after we get some studies and some analysis back from the staff.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. Commissioner
Madam Chair.
Lowry?
Yeah, I'm all for lowering the millage rate. Pretty simple. We saw on that piece of paper how we could do it. I think residents would be happy about that.
Any other questions, comments? Okay.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Clasby?
So, first of all, there's not a whole room in here full of people coming to public comment, I don't think, about lowering our taxes today. And that's rather unfortunate because knocking on thousands of doors in our community, aside from development approvals, taxes was definitely the number one thing that people in our community are hounding me, and I'm sure the rest of you. Whenever I go to Publix, I can't go in there without getting asked, hey, what are you doing about our taxes? So I want the public to know what a battle it was to keep the millage rate flat. And I'll be honest with you, I'm comfortable moving it forward today with it flat, but I'm hoping there's an army in here when we set the final millage rate, because I'll be pushing for it to be lowered at that final one. I won't be able to support a flat millage rate moving forward, but I also want to give staff the appropriate amount of time to look to how to make that happen and to fully look at Mr. Fry's paper here. And I think there's a path forward. I've had some bright minds looking at this along with me that aren't elected, but they're just concerned citizens. And if there's need to find a spot where to cut, I have a list of things that people have provided me that could be brought into question. But like I said, I'd be okay with keeping it flat right now, but I definitely think that it can't be flat at the next one. In fact, I'd be comfortable with lowering it now to force it to go down, but it's the will of the board at this point.
All right. Any other questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to move forward with the millage rate as of last year.
Motion, is there a second? Okay.
Looking at me. Second.
So-
Second it.
Yeah, you got a second? Okay, so there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Corey. Moving into planning and development for Pod 8, Oak Ridge Ranches.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Corey Benton, Planning Manager for the record. Presenting the final site plan for Nova at Solaris. As you noted, Pod 8 within Oak Ridge Ranches. This matter, of course, is quasi-judicial, but is part of the regular agenda today. The subject parcel is just over 20 acres. It's located along Glades Cutoff Road, southwest of Glades Cutoff's intersection with Range Line. This is one of the series of pods that fronts Glades Cutoff, and at the rear has a proposed canal or flowway, which we'll get into momentarily. Of course, the site being part of the overall Oak Ridge Ranches plan unit development with a master plan previously approved in 2023 within the Oak Ridge Ranches mixed-use activity area. Earlier this year, the Board of County Commissioners approved an adjustment to the authorized Phase 1A master initial site plan for Oak Ridge Ranches, which again established the various pods and tracks to contain individual development plans, as well as the Soli Boulevard Master Spine Road, which loops between Glades Cutoff and Rangeline Roads as displayed, including the extension of Rangeline Road north from Glades to connect to Soli Boulevard, as well as one item that was introduced at that time, the prior adjustment in 2025, was an interim connection road known as Providence Way, which will allow for initial traffic to bypass the future expanded intersection of Glades and Rangeline. Pod 8, as noted on screen, is situated toward the southwest portion of where Soli Boulevard would connect with Glades Cutoff, adjacent to Civic 1 and Commercial 1 pod, with Pod 9 immediately to the east. And to the rear, as noted, is the proposed canal or flowway, which is part of the overall stormwater master system for Oak Ridge Ranches. Highlighted in green are the various conservation areas, primary conservation areas, as there's additional scattered preservation lands amongst the various pods. We'll note that Pod 8 does not contain any of those planned spaces, as there's little native vegetation or habitat on Pod 8 existing today. This is the overlay of Pod 8 with regards to the overall preliminary PUD plan with key highlights. The applicant is proposing 176 single-family attached townhome lots, a series of 4 and 6 unit buildings, which we'll highlight momentarily. The calculated density of this particular pod rests at 8.5 units per acre, well within the allowable 6 to 15 unit per acre range provided by this preliminary PD plan. There's a single vehicular access point proposed by the applicant connecting to Glades Cutoff Road with a sizable amount of right-of-way to be dedicated to expand and transition Glades Cutoff Road in the future to serve the uptick in traffic. We'll detail in a moment the on-site recreational amenities proposed for future residents here at Nova, including a pool, cabana, and recreation lawn. There's a central dry detention stormwater area with an adjacent pedestrian walking trail, as well as a pedestrian connection linking to Pod 7, which again is also a Meritage community. And I'll state for the record, the applicant is represented by Cutler and Herring, Donald Herring, and they are representing Meritage Homes, which is the contract purchaser from Oak Ridge Ranches Residential. But Meritage Homes is also the proposed developer for Pod 7 with over 300 single-family detached lots planned across the flowway to the west. So please make note of this overall site plan, how the north arrow is oriented, but wanted to maximize visibility. See the two-way full access initially off of Glades Cutoff Road through an initial entry gate, arriving at that recreational amenity, the series of townhome lots and units surrounding the dry detention area with linked streets and some guest parking. And then toward the left side of the screen, presenting that planned pedestrian connection between the single-family community of Pod 7 and this proposed townhome community. Staff in our evaluation as part of the Development Review Committee's consideration of Pod 8, we've highlighted one of the provisions of the plan unit development approval that looks for demonstration of strategies to provide for internal connectivity and links between uses, trying to avoid this, allocation of external trips to Glades Cutoff and some of the surrounding roads when possible to interconnect. Therefore, staff is recommending that the applicant explore where adjacent compatible developments might allow for internal vehicular connections as displayed in blue, the provision of that should we have compatible uses and the viability of connecting residents internally as opposed to pushing those trips out toward Glades Cutoff. So simply a highlight as part of this plan. And as noted in green, how that pedestrian connectivity that they are in fact proposing for folks on foot to connect to adjacent developments in the future. As noted to the south here, we have a civic pod. At one point was considered as a lead site for a potential K-8 school. The master developer and the school district are exploring where that lead school site might be within the overall development. And we do not have an immediate plan for Pod 9 due north. Buffering and compatibility were key considerations with the overall Oak Ridge Ranches master plan development. That plan development prescribed minimum separation standards at some of the boundaries, as well as landscape buffering sections to be deployed. Along Glades Cutoff, the emphasis on dampening any noise, visual impacts from nearby traffic, as on Glades we can have an array of agricultural traffic, consumer vehicles, as well as some adjacent light industrial or industrial activities. So the applicant is adhering to that buffer standard with a minimum 25-foot buffer, the provision of a berm, as well as various shrubs and trees to provide for enhancements there. This is an overview perspective of that planning plan with a central fence, shrubs on both sides of it, and then various types and sizes of trees. See one break in the action on the what would be the north side for secondary emergency access point for fire and EMS. So a slight break in the buffer, but overall pretty tight-knit buffering section planned. Did make a note in the staff report that the plan and the overall PUD calls for the option of a wall or fence. The applicant is proposing a black vinyl chain link fence with the landscaping intended to grow up and conceal that fence. Staff has encouraged consideration of an opaque wall or something with limited maintenance, comparable to how Pod 6, which would be to the south, integrated that type of fixture. Here's a snapshot of a typical 6-unit building displaying the driveways based upon the different unit size. 2-story townhome units planned, each with a garage, their own driveway, and rear patios. These would be platted for sale townhomes. Based upon evaluation by the Development Review Committee, finding the project to align with the approved Oak Ridge Ranches MXD and plan unit development and our land development code and comprehensive plan, staff is recommending the Board of County Commissioners approve the Pod 8 site plan as presented in the resolution with the following conditions. First two, reiterating some of the transportation improvements committed for the project, as well as 3 through 6, reiterating the same. 7, identifying in a frequent condition that ownership or transfer of a residential structure or unit cannot occur until the final plat is approved and recorded. 8, prior to issuance of a building permit, a typical townhome planting plan shall be reviewed and approved, which integrates complementary landscape plantings and meets the tree planting requirement. So each lot has its own complementary landscape palette. Here, 9 is verification that at least one of the major recreational facilities be completed in alignment with 40% of the townhome units, and that the plan retains the pedestrian link to Pod 7 as previously approved with that community. 10, verification that all signs will comply with the overall master sign plan. 11, clarification that a site development permit is required. Standard condition on 12 that should the plat be advanced prior to completing all of the on-site infrastructure, we require subdivision improvement agreement and surety. 13 links to a overall compliance with the Phase 1A conditions of approval. And 14, 15, and 16 all link to standard conditions requiring removal of invasive species as part of development, and a pre-construction meeting with our Environmental Resources Department to ensure we have alignment in the game plan and approaches to erosion control and other key aspects. The applicant does have their team available with a brief presentation. If the board doesn't have any further questions of staff.
Any questions for Corey? Good morning, Don. How are you?
Very, very well. Do you have the clicker, Corey? Well, good morning, Madam Chair and council members. For the record, Donaldson Hearing with the firm of Kotler and Hearing here today on behalf of Oak Ridge Ranches LLC and Meritage Homes. And thank you so much for welcoming us into your chambers this morning. And Corey, thank you so much for all of your hard work. I've mentioned to each of you, I think individually, how excellent your staff is and how lucky you are. He's your planning manager, and I think he knows every single detail of this project. And so quite impressive. So we very much so appreciate your staff. I'll try not to be redundant. I know it's been a long morning, but we'll run through our request. Do I have to point? Yeah, right there. So our team is here. We also have Josh Long with Oak Ridge Ranches LLC here with us. You're familiar with the Oak Ridge Ranches and Solaris master plan, so I won't go over that in too much detail, but this is the last residential pod 8. And as noted in the staff report, Pod 8 was identified for being able to either have townhouses or multifamily. We're proposing townhouses, which is a type of single-family attached, as opposed to an apartment building that would be multifamily. We also point out that down in this area is where we will have 650,000 square feet of non-residential. 250,000 square feet is anticipated to be a medical center, medically related. And so the location of the townhouse product, the attached product, the slightly higher density product is located in an area that's appropriate, adjacent to where we're going to have a higher intensity of development and where we might have jobs. And if you may recall, the only other townhomes that have been proposed was in a small section of Pod 5 that we brought forth to you in January, which is one of the pods that Coulter themselves are building out, also adjacent to the potential school site and commercial area. So very excited to bring this forward. As pointed out in the staff report, the access for this site is directly from Glades Cutoff. However, we have provided for emergency egress into Pod 9. Again, we don't know exactly what Pod 9 is going to be at this point, but there is that ingress and egress for connectivity into Pod 9, and then also emergency EMS access out to Glades Cutoff on the road. As noted by Corey, and actually had a discussion with Commissioner Clasby yesterday, we've limited the size of the townhouse buildings to 4-unit buildings and 6-unit buildings. And we think that that's an appropriate scale design for this area. The outer units are 29 feet in width with a 2-car garage, about 1,800 square feet. The inside units are 20 feet wide, but while often you'll see people propose townhouses in 8 or 10 units, we believe that this is the appropriate scale. It creates the necessary open space, breaks up the streetscape as it exists on the site. So the product is very similar to what you're probably familiar with that Meritage has done at their Tidewater project. So they're really very, very spacious and provide an alternative diversity of housing type, which we believe from a community planning standpoint is really, really important, is to be able to have a diversity of not only housing types, but a diversity of population and housing that basically provides for all different types of folks. Here's the entrance. The entrance will be a gated entrance. It's not guarded, but it'd be gated and would have controlled access. The little view of what we've done at one of the projects at the Azalea at St. Lucie County. Again, Meritage is well known. They do a very, very good job, and they are, as Corey pointed out, the developers of Pod 7, with a little over 300 single-family homes, which is about 125 acres, which is immediately to the west of the canal here. So it's nice that they have a variety of product types that they'll be able to offer to the community. We have a right-sized recreational amenity, and we're always very sensitive about providing the appropriate amenity. There's open space, there's a pool, and facilities for our residents, but they're not burdened with an amenity that costs too much to maintain. So this is a similar amenity that was completed and something that we're looking at mirroring. And as Corey pointed out, we are proposing an additional 62 feet of right-of-way, which will be dedicated for Glades Cutoff to provide for future expansion, but also other mobility improvements, multimodal paths and other things that could occur within that area. So that's a number that's been worked out with your Public Works Department. We do have a nice buffer. The buffer is 25 feet. It is densely planted. It would be our preference not to do a wall because we think green is better than the hard wall that's there. That would be our preference in this particular case. This is just an example of a product type. We're looking at doing probably a Craftsman as well as a coastal style. This is one that's a little bit more contemporary. in style, but it also provides some of the design flavor that Meritage adds to their product. So very, very nicely articulated. And with that, I will conclude our presentation. We are in agreement to the conditions of approval as outlined by Corey, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. And again, thank you very much for having us today.
Thank you, Don. I'll come back to the board if we can do our disclosures real quick. Commissioner Clasby, I'll start with you.
I've met with staff and the applicant.
Staff and applicant.
I've met with, so most recently, I'll just keep it to that because we've been, well, it's not on here, but it's marked here that it's quasi, so is it? Maite saying yes.
Okay.
I know I caught it, otherwise I was right there. So most recently, just for this pod, Josh Long with Coulter, Don Hearing with Kotler and Hearing, the team from Meritage, as well as Leah from Kotler and Hearing as well.
Staff and applicant.
Same as you.
Got it. Okay. So with that, questions, comments? If not, I entertain a motion.
Move approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you. All right. All right. Now we get to hear about all the things Ben's been up to.
Not me specifically, just planning and development staff. I can't take credit for everything here. Good morning, Commissioners, Chair Fowler, Ben Balser, Planning and Development Services Director, and I will be going over Agenda Item 12C2. It is the administrative approval update for the months of May and June. The first project is the major adjustment to the National Navy UDT SEAL Museum. This board approved the major adjustment to the museum's conditional use permit in April to allow for the expansion. The recently approved site plan adjustment includes the construction of a two-story, 30,747 square foot addition with an added exhibition space, offices, a conference room, the event space, and an outdoor terrace. Next is a major site plan known as Gettler Brothers Construction, which is located on the west side of Sapp Road. It's about a quarter mile south of St. Lucie Boulevard and the Treasure Coast International Airport. In 2024, the board approved a rezoning of the 36-acre site from industrial extraction to industrial light, with a small portion of the site being zoned industrial heavy. This recent approved site plan includes a phased development plan with over 250,000 square feet of equipment laydown area, a 14,500 square foot office, a 24,000 square foot manufacturing shop, and associated paved parking and landscaping improvements. The third project is a minor adjustment to the conditional use permit for U-Haul of Port St. Lucie. This is located on the east side of US 1. It's about a third of a mile south of Kitterman Road. The adjustment increases Building A's footprint to from 108,000 square feet to just over 109,000 square feet. While the building's footprint is changing, the overall building space will remain the same as what the board approved in February of 2025. And the last project is the major adjustment to the minor site plan at 7400 Commercial Circle. This is for United Rentals. It's located within the Kings Highway Industrial Park. The site plan adjustment, it adjusted the equipment storage on site by increasing that space by just over 22,000 square feet, and it added landscaping to enhance the screening of the existing and the proposed storage area. And that concludes the administrative approvals for the months of May and June, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Thanks, Ben. Any questions, comments? Thank you.
you.
Appreciate it. All right. Moving on to administration for the Infrastructure Surtax Oversight Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There is one at-large vacancy on the Infrastructure Surtax Oversight Committee. There were 6 applicants that were forwarded to board liaisons for review. All 6 were deemed to be qualified. You do have a ballot at your desk up there, and if you all would like to vote on who you'd like, Sydney can gather those, tally them up, and we can let you know who the next at-large vacancy will be filled by. Madam Chair, Commissioners, Jeffrey B. Lyons had a vote from Commissioner Leet and Commissioner Townsend. Leslie Olson had a vote from Commissioner Clasby and Commissioner Fowler, and Candy Bergman had a vote from Commissioner Lowry. So you have 2 with 2 votes and 1 with 1 vote. So there's a tie between Leslie Olson and Jeffrey Lyons.
Okay, so I know in the past when we've had a tie, we've asked if there was anyone that wanted to change their vote, so I'll do that before we do another paper vote. Isn't that how we've done it before when we had a, okay. So I'll just ask if there's anyone willing to change their vote one way or the other.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Lowry?
Yeah, I can switch my vote.
And you would be going to?
Leslie Olson.
Olson. Okay. So then that would be Commissioner Clasby, Commissioner Lowry, and myself for Leslie Olson, and Commissioner Townsend, Commissioner Lee for Jeffrey Lyons then.
That would be correct, Madam Chair.
Okay. So congratulations, Miss Leslie Olson. All right, with that brings us to the end of the meeting, short of commissioner comments. Bring it back to the board for comments. Concerning?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner
I'd
Lee?
just like to thank the staff again and the board. I think we've done an excellent job on the budget this year, even though it's not finished, but I think we're all in the singing off the same hymn book, so to speak. So I appreciate that, and again, for the staff with all their work.
Absolutely.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner
Ditto.
Lowry? Yep. Yeah, very well said.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Clasby?
I'd just like to remind the public that lobster mini season starts next week, July 30th and the 31st. We'll be looking for your paid time off application. I'm just kidding. But looking forward to that myself. So.
All right. And with that, we'll bring it over to Mr. Landry for our upcoming meetings.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners will hold a regular meeting on Tuesday, August 5th, 2025 at 6 p.m. here in these commission chambers. And the Board of County Commissioners will hold an informal meeting on Tuesday, August 12th, 2025 at 9 a.m. here in these commission chambers. Both are located at 2300 Virginia Avenue, and Eric will handle the remaining 2 announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Madam Chair, Commissioners, just to tack on, it's not on here, but I do want to, since Commissioner Clasby brought it up about mini season, as someone who used to partake all the time, it is important for residents when they're diving off the beaches to make sure they have a dive flag. There are a lot of boats coming close to shore during mini season during those few days, so let's keep everyone safe. But the official announcements as part of the agenda. St. Lucie County has initiated a comprehensive community survey designed to gather resident input on key local priorities, programs, and services. Conducted by ETC Institute, a nationally recognized research firm, the survey will help inform data-driven decisions that impact the future of the county. All responses are anonymous. A select number of homes have already received paper surveys, which can be completed and mailed back with a provided posted paid-for stamped envelope. And any resident can take the survey online at stluciesurvey.org. So that's stluciesurvey.org. It's also on our website under the Engage page. And a final reminder that St. Lucie County's Parks and Recreation staff will host back-to-school splash jams at all 3 county pools. These free, family-friendly pool parties will take place across 3 days from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., weather permitting. Those dates are Monday, July 28th at the Ravenswood Pool, 400 Southwest Ravenswood Lane in Port St. Lucie. Tuesday, July 29th at the Lakewood Park Pool, 5990 Emerson Avenue in Fort Pierce, and Wednesday, July 30th at the Boatwright Pool at 1200 Avenue M in Fort Pierce.
Thank you, Eric. And with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.